What's up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Just wanted to show the weigh-in during this time, but this has been some injectable Sarm footage that I have collected over the past couple weeks, and I wanted to showcase Jasper throwing it down high bar squat and getting up to some volume with 315 on a small cruise. He is on a small cruise and he is around 6'2". So I wanted to just go into this old footage I have collected. Normally I get rid of this footage, but I was focusing on redoing my editing team. So I have added a new editor named Zach. So I'm super happy to have him on the team, and he's going to be assisting me with the studio content, as well as Andrew, obviously. So that was behind the scenes what I wanted to focus on while training constantly. I've been training constantly. I have been, pushing as far as getting the strength volume back. The cycle has been going really good, honestly. I very much am liking the way I look around 240. So this footage is at 250-ish pounds on the MK677. So around probably over 10 pounds of just useless water, but it was really helping me push through the DOM cycles. And I have been slowly but surely climbing back up the strength volume in the squat rack, which will help me with all the other lifting days, honestly. My big thing is that I want to get back to repping 405 on high bar squat, and then I feel like I should be able to withstand all the other days working out. So that's like where I'm at. I was super impressed that Jasper, was throwing it down with 315. He just got off a flight. He definitely needed a little bit of ankle mobility tweaking, and we had him stand on plates, but those are legit reps of 315 at 6'2", and that's a small cruise. He's not blasting or anything. And yeah, it's just awesome to see Jasper, in the squat rack throwing it down. I have been super sporadic with how I've been dosing this injectable Sarm cycle, meaning I'll be loading up the dosings and then backing off, then loading up the dosings, backing off, while I was keeping MK677 very high dosage, almost too high dosage in my mind. But as far as recovering after these workouts, it has gone easier and easier. The DOM cycles have gone shorter and shorter, and I did take the MK677 out of my system, and I went down to around 240 pounds, which my parents say, I look a lot better. But as far as the performance-wise, that MK was helping me recover. Should I introduce GH or other compounds like in the growth hormone pathway? Sure, but I was just doing tried and true what I did last time, repeating this cycle, and it seemed to work out just fine. I did want to go into that this footage personally is only injectable LGD. I did add, the injectable yk11 later. So for those who are just stopping in, I'm repeating a injectable Sarm cycle before I go to the more tried and true cycles and lean up, get my body fat right. This is kind of me having fun before I decide to stick with what is tried and true and feature injectable LGD 4033 and feature injectable yk11. And if you're wondering the source I'm using, Google Ryan Russo Linktree, and it's Modern Aminos has the injectable Sarm catalog. I really don't think you need something stronger than injectable LGD 4033. It feels crazy strong. It feels like a ton of taxing on the central nervous system, meaning I may or may not be hypertaxing my CNS to cause an adaptation, all the androgen receptor firing. It seems to be crazy powerful, and I wanted to showcase in this vlog my look, in my opinion, got worse when I injected the yk11 and added that in on top of the LGD 4033. So the other compounds I'm running, because everyone's always wants to know the full list, I will say that I have been very sporadic, meaning I've been loading up the dosings. Maybe I train too hard, like today, where I'm just messing around on the Shrunk machine, loading myself electrically, and then I back off. Then I back off the dosings. But I also have been throwing in HCG. I should be throwing HMG in there. And the base is Sustanon, which I'm just loading up as much Sustanon as I can. I'm not being super crazy with tracking everything, just because it's just based on how these DOM cycles go. The DOM cycles have, at the point of me filming this voiceover, like it's much better for me to actually just go on and vlog normally now. This is like the catch-up footage that probably I would, in other cases, throw this catch-up footage away, because it's just like a hodgepodge of like all this footage I've collected. And, there's really no narrative to it other than the fact that right now recording, this is injectable LGD, HCG, and 677, right? I wanted to showcase that you can see my body get way flatter when I add in this injectable yk11. And as far as the weight goes on the 677, I'm rocking like around 250 pounds with the 677 out of my system. The way my basal metabolic rate has recovered, I am, struggling to maintain 240 pounds. Where do I see myself sitting as this cycle goes on? Hopefully I get down into the 230s with minimal dieting, with minimal, in quotation marks, trying. I'm just trying to enjoy the gym, have fun, and, mostly have a training session where I exit the gym and I look at, the old injectable SARM cycle vlogs and be like, okay, this is very close to the working volume, the intensity, the aggression, the tenacity I was doing the original injectable SARM cycle vlog. That's what I'm like gauging it on. I'm not gauging it on hyper nuanced nutrition. I probably should. I'm not gauging on hyper nuanced drug tracking. I probably should. It's about, in quotation marks, having fun, in quotation marks, getting to that level again. And it's been easier and easier as I've moved along to the point I'm recording this voiceover. I do feel like I want to be vlogging, need to be vlogging consistently with this cycle. But this is the catch-up footage. So I'm still doing HIIT cardio on the Stairmaster. I'm still enjoying the stairs for the stimulation of the CNS. I just like having everything peaked. I'm trying to electrically peak, essentially, and then I'll deal with making my physique actually look, in quotation marks, good and all that stuff. Because for me, it's like I want to go into the gym and know I can push a full session and know that my DOM cycle isn't crazy out of whack, which around these days it's not. It's really not. I'm really happy with where I am. But during this footage, I had to battle DOM cycles. So that is what I had to do. As far as Jasper, he got to see Pittsburgh Powerhouse. So they have a lot of one-off machines here. Really cool collection of commercial equipment, as well as really high end arsenal strength equipment, which is basically why I go to Pittsburgh Powerhouse, as I get access to all the arsenal strength equipment, and I want to show off this chest press. So this is more like bodybuilding, high volume stuff, where I should be a little bit more retracted than I already am, and I should be tucking my thumbs in my mind. So what's going on with the legs? The legs have been coming back as far as, the squat volume has persisted. I'm really happy front squatting 315 again. It feels very normal to throw it around. I can't throw it around consistently, meaning there was one day I went into front squat after watching a bunch of powerlifting motivation videos, and the CNS wasn't quite kicking over how it used to. The whole goal of this cycle isn't to... It's obviously to achieve a look, don't get me wrong, but it's to achieve a central nervous system refresh rate where I'm ready to go all day, every day. I'm ready to work all day, every day, and I don't notice big peaks and valleys in the refresh rate. And I'm training very much like how I used to train. I just have to start actually, going for it. Now, this is the footage I wanted to showcase where I added in the injectable yk11, and in my opinion, my physique look went backwards. I look flatter, nothing's popping. I look, in quotation marks, more natty for me, right, with my genetics. I don't feel like it aided my look by cranking up the yk11. I feel like my CNS was getting crushed by having injectable LGD and injectable YK11 with the sustanon taking up 5-alpha reductase. And I was constantly, yo-yoing the MK677. The HCG I was sporadically adding in there because I've just gone through so much HCG at this point. I have to just re-up on a ton of it and keep it more consistent. But what I'm trying to say is with these SARMs, I do feel like less is more with dosing as far as like how you're visually going to look, meaning I do feel like you could look, in quotation marks, flatter, more natural if you go crazy high dosage with the SARMs. However, I do feel like if you find the, in quotation marks, sweet spot and your central nervous system can electrically handle it, which means like if I could squat 500 high bar for a legitimate bodybuilder style, 9-10 reps, I could probably handle all this and look freaky. I'm nowhere near there, so I have to get back there, and it's one of those things where I am pushing against the CNS. The CNS is taking notes, and I'm slowly but surely getting back there. But for example, my height is 5'11", and I am showing that, I don't like this look. You're seeing me going like, yep, the YK11 set me backwards. I still see a little bit of lines and stuff. Obviously, this is a watery look, but I'm not, blowing up per se on these injectable SARMs. It's actually hammering my central nervous system down, and I'm pushing against that to slowly recover. That's what I wanted to paint in this vlog, is like, look how flat I look at this weight with the YK11, where you can still see I can separate my delts. There's separation. Everything, isn't necessarily popping, but I would consider that look very flat, where, trust me, I am not cutting or anything of that sort, right? I am just feeding the body and watching the recomposition happen like it's happened before with using these injectable SARMs and stuff, because it is for sure interfering with the binding hierarchy of dihydrotestosterone, which I have talked about in other topic videos, meaning that dihydrotestosterone is normally the master androgen you don't really want to mess with, and it's the androgen that normally gets first dibs on the androgen receptor. We have no idea how LGD or YK11 interferes with that, but my theory is that it's booting DHT and competing and winning, meaning your brain is taking notes on the SARMs. For example, whatever dosage you're doing, when you add an injectable, your brain is taking notes, central nervous system wise, on these SARMs, battling for DHT, where, for example, most traditional oral steroid cycles, they follow the hierarchy of that. You're not messing with that. This is what makes this cycle very exotic, and why I'm kind of doing it while I'm just, in my mind, getting back in shape. And I wanted to show that this YK11, I look decent, but I look very flat in this footage. And I did recover the flatness. You'll see at the very end of the video, I wanted to show my body adapt against it. So I do have a little bit of posing footage at the end to show me filling out. And I'm in a bigger jersey. I'm in the Olympia jersey, and I'm filling out, and I look better, right? This is like to showcase that, hey, I got these SARMs, I take it, I look worse. This is why you could be dosing it too high. I'm showing it in the most aggressive setup standpoint of like, the goal of this cycle is to cause hypercentral nervous system adaptation, to place my central nervous system in a very stressful situation and cause adaptation. And I'm using the MK677, probably should use something else in the growth hormone pathway, but I'm using stuff in the growth hormone pathway to speed the DOM cycle up along. And that has been my goal with this cycle, not necessarily to create my best look. Obviously, I'm aiming to beat the look of the original injectable SARM cycle, but it's primarily to get it to a point where I'm not going to train every day, but I could train every day. I could have the central nervous system output volume to go in there and squat 405 for reps every single day at a 230 to 240 pound body weight. And I have been yo-yoing up from 240 to 250 with the 677, right? That extra 10 pounds is just fluff, trash weight that's fucking up my blood pressure and all that stuff. I'm just really using the 677 because of the long half-lives, and because 677 releases all the types of growth hormone endogenously, and it's my endogenous growth hormone that I know is helping, and it's creating the harshest adaptation that I wanted to use on myself, because I just want to get it to the point where, yes, the CNS has been hyper stressed to get back to this point. It will be perfectly fine with me loading normal bodybuilder volume and then dipping off training days, right? I'll probably still do cardio on those other days because I have to do something to lift and work out. Like, I have to lift. But this is kind of like, in my opinion, like the Goku central nervous system gravity chamber, where I'm loading up a very heavy central nervous system cycle. Obviously, I could load up trend and make it worse, but we're staying away from trend. But this is kind of like a reverse way of thinking of, like, when people do trend for a very long time, why their body deteriorates. It's actually their central nervous system deteriorating. Same thing when they add in too many SARMs. They start deteriorating. And that is why I wanted to showcase that I'm causing this yo-yo at this point to just get back to the point where my body can take the training sessions I used to do in the original injectable SARM logs. And when I added in this injectable yk11, I'm looking at this footage and I look flat. There's obvious separation, dryness going on. There's strangeness of yk11 as far as lifting heavy. I definitely feel like my joints and tendons are compromised. I definitely would not recommend you power lift on injectable yk11. All while the injectable Lgd 4033 has my AR super saturated, theoretically beating dihydrotestosterone to the receptor. So you have no idea how that's impacting the central nervous system brain tuning, right? And I'm trying to do tuning to retune my CNS to a point where, yeah, I could be high put entrepreneurial work output, and I could train like this how I used to be with the injectable SARM cycle a long time ago. But as far as like the original look that I always look at and ramble about, that was around, I think 244 is on the video, but I believe it was like 253 at one point, where I would consider that very apex predator look as far as like my overall athleticism. Obviously, I'm not a pretty genetic freak bodybuilder, but my overall athleticism on that cycle was very crazy, and that's what I'm chasing. This is the footage where the central nervous system took notes. You can see I am fuller. You can see that my muscles have filled out. You can see that my quads are holding correctly while training chest. So normally in this recovery, it was like, okay, if I'm training chest, my legs are going to shrink while I'm training chest. This is one of those times where I'm like, okay, it seems like I have enough to go around, and I'm going to push harder and harder. And at the end, you can see that I have a lot more fullness and separation upon the first time adding in injectable yk11, meaning when you are using these crazy powerful exotic SARMs that are supposed to be used in extremely small dosages, and you're just going like, all right, let's see where the peak is, your CNS could go backwards. It could get throttled, and you could wind up in weird situations where I'm using this as a training mechanism to push my CNS further and further along to recover my legs primarily, because when you do deadlifts, high bar back squats, that's always the biggest, recovery cycles. That's why powerlifters don't train that much. That's why powerlifters, take a lot of breaks in between their sets, because that's a lot of electrical output. That physique that I always ramble about, the original injectable SARM physique, was a power builder physique. So I had high electrical output, and I had pretty decent volumized muscle for my bodybuilding genetics. But as you can see, my shoulders, in my opinion, are a lot fuller. I look a lot better. This is a bigger shirt jersey, obviously a bit bloated, but you can see that I still have separation and everything going on at the end of my workout, where that one workout where I add in the Inject YK, I was like, yeah, I look flat. I look smaller. I almost look nattier when I injected that yk11. So these are situations that normally go on with SARMs in general, oral or injectable, and or tren. Traditional gear cycles seem to be way, better, safer as far as the central nervous system output, because you are relying on dihydrotestosterone as the primary androgen to tune the CNS. You are most likely overriding, interfering with the brain pruning of your CNS when you are adding in tren and or any of these SARMs. Primarily injectable LGD 4033 seems to be the most retuning, because the saturation effect of doing 20 to 50 milligrams a day. I hope you learned something in this video. I will see you guys in my next one.